And
No, we recorded and we actually get a lot more views like after during the live. We'll get like people kind of trilling in, but it's after, like the day after or the week after we get the most views.
right.
Make sure that we're live now. Okay. Yep, I think we're live. Let me make sure we're good.
Yay.
Perfect. All right. So I see like two of you here, which is fine. Let me
Yeah, I
take.
was gonna say I can take it off if you want, if it's
No, it's
distracting.
totally fine because you're doing it on Instagram Live.
Well, no, I'm not now because I can't do it on. If I would have to hang up the phone, I would have to go on Instagram Live on the phone, which I guess I could.
Yeah, you can just go on the phone and just kind of maybe put it mute.
Yeah, I can still see you here. Yeah, there are people on. So awesome. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so what happens is I have to let people in as they're
Right.
coming in. So, all right, we'll get started. They're all coming in. So as people come in, I usually stop their video and you won't see them. Um, so let me stop the video as they're coming.
Let me see if I can. Then I'm gonna have to look in my.
All right, so we'll get started now.
Oh.
Okay, everyone, thank you so much for joining us. This is our weekly Tuesday talks, our NAMI Greater Houston weekly discussions with some community leaders, community advocates when it comes to mental health. And today we have a very special guest. I actually met her through our other kind of connections and stuff with our friends, but we have Miss Misty here. She is going to tell us a little bit about herself, and also Misty Campbell. She's going to tell us how she got into this journey. So I always like to start off with just tell everyone in the community who you are and your background, and we'll get started.
Yeah, absolutely. So good late afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much, Carmen, for having me. My name is Misty Campbell. I am actually a native Houstonian. I was born and raised here, although I have had opportunities to live overseas via the military. So I lived in Germany for a year and lived in West Texas for about a year in Odessa, Texas, which is really dry and dry. But currently I am actually working in sales in oil and gas. I have also recently started my wardrobe and fashion styling business that I do that part-time, and I absolutely love it. I have two amazing kids. I have a daughter who will be 18 in June, and I have a son who is 14. And yeah, I'm super excited to be here. I think that's me in a nutshell. Let me know what else you want to know.
Well, we're kicking off, February, Black History Month, and I wanted to kind of focus on individuals that really are really passionate about mental health. I know that you started kind of your own advocacy on your social media platforms as far as mental health, and why is mental health important to you? Tell us where is that coming about, and what are you doing right now to kind of bring some awareness to, especially to people of color, the community, as far as just how they can just know a little bit more about self-care and mental health.
So mental health actually runs very dominant on my mom's side of the family. Is it all right with me looking here? Can you guys see me okay? Looking at my laptop. Okay, cool.
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, so mental health is mental illness runs very heavy on my mother's side of the family. So I have been exposed to it at a very young age. I have an uncle who actually suffers from schizophrenia. He has been nonverbal since a young age as a result of a traumatic experience with him, which was his parents' divorce, my grandparents. He's never spoken. He says maybe a couple of words, but he has not been able to function normally in society and has been a part of the system his entire life. My mother also has suffered from bipolar disorder as well as schizoaffective disorder. And so schizoaffective disorder pretty much is, they're kind of still in reality versus schizophrenia. They're just kind of not here, right? People with schizoaffective disorder tend to be somewhat in tune with reality, but they still hear voices that will dictate specific actions. And in our case, I grew up in a very religious home. We grew up Christian, but our Christianity practices were almost very cult-like as a result of my mom's mental disorder. A result of her disorder caused her to be very physically abusive with my siblings, and I'm the oldest of three. I have a younger sister and a younger brother, and we all have had our experiences with trauma and the aftermaths of living a life with under abuse with someone with a mental health disorder. She also suffered from medication abuse, so substance abuse. And, at very young ages, we found ourselves trying to keep her from jumping out of a car, moving car, and have found her passed out in the bathroom, and so many other different traumatic things we witnessed as a young age. That tended to follow me to a degree when I got older. When I was old enough to get out of my house, I found myself in a relationship with a narcissist. And so I suffered from narcissistic abuse. I did not know what that was, had never heard of that until I left that relationship. And thank God for the therapists in my life who were able to help me understand, the root of a lot of the things that I had suffered from. Today, I deal with anxiety. I am on anxiety medication, and I have had bouts with depression, not chronic depression or severe depression, but I have, had some very, very dark days. And for someone who, people that know me and have known me for years, I've always been this stylish woman. I've always been outgoing and happy. I, had taught fitness for 9 years at some of the best gyms in Houston. And there were days when I literally would not shower. I mean, like 2-3 days, no shower, wouldn't brush my teeth. It was that dark for me. So, that is why I'm so passionate about advocating, because I understand the importance of not only breaking the stigmas, but also the importance of being okay with saying, hey, I need help. I need, therapeutic help. I need to speak with someone. And that is absolutely okay. And I'm super passionate about it today. You did bring up one of the things that I've started to do as a part of my fashion blog page is I started what I call Mental Mondays, in which I just share, positive messages. I talk about different resources. I share resources. And I also, just bring up topics that help stimulate conversations around mental health. I do give the disclaimer, I'm not a therapist. I'm not a counselor or a doctor. So I don't ever go very deep into talking about mental disorders because I'm not educated from that aspect, but I am trying to bring an awareness in the best way I know how, using my fashion platform. So
tell me how it was, because I think it's and thank you for sharing that story that started with just family members, especially with your mom, you being the oldest. At what point did you realize that your mother was diagnosed with a mental condition, and how did that affect, as far as I know the stigma behind it, people didn't really share much about it, but tell us a little bit about when you guys knew as a family, like there was something different. And then how did you have conversations with, let's say, other family members or just friends to kind of see if you could understand until you got older, what she really was about?
So, yeah, thanks for that question. That's a great question. It wasn't really until we got a lot older, till I think I felt comfortable enough to come to the realization, first of all, that something is not right. Like I knew at a young age, very early on, that something was not right with her. And unfortunately, that is the sad thing about mental illness. In the beginning, there were times when I remember her very normal. And it was just a matter of watching her slowly deteriorate over time. It was very complicated to speak up because she was very religious, and because she was overly religious and was hearing these voices telling her to be abusive. Because she was religious, she also had this very sweet side to her. I personally think, from what I have learned about narcissists, I think she had some narcissistic qualities about her, where she could play both personalities. In front of people, she was super sweet. I mean, so nice. She always treated everybody great. She always worked in the church, but it was behind closed doors where the abuse was going on. So for a long time, we really couldn't say anything, especially as a kid living in the house. And my father, who was there, he just worked as much as he could. And I know that there were times where he just did not want to come home. And my dad grew up in the country. He came from a big family, and his family never dealt with things like that. So he never really was, active in trying to get her the help she needed. I know there were times when he tried to get her help, but it's hard to help somebody that doesn't want to help themselves. And doctors can only keep a client and treat a client as long as that client will give them permission and authority to let these to work with these doctors. So it really wasn't until we were adults. My father finally left my mom. I think they were married at that time, 32 years or something like that, 34 years. And they were living in a house. She never worked, and he just left. And he left her there. And I, as an adult, already at that time married with kids, had to get her admitted to a mental hospital. And the only thing that really saved me and supported that action was the fact that, because my dad left, nobody was paying bills. So the electricity was off, the AC was off. So I was able to file a mental health warrant for the doctors to go pick her up. And I cited that, she is mentally ill. She had been diagnosed before with bipolar disorder. So I had that record, luckily, in the system to back me up. And also she had a journal that she would journal in every day, very disturbing things. And I was able to obtain that and submit it to the hospital. And I told the doctors, I said, look, she is going to be so nice. You are not, what I'm telling you, I know you don't believe me. And the doctor said, ma'am, we deal with these type of people all the time. And there's going to be a point after so many days that her true self is going to come out. Don't worry. We know how to handle this. So that was really the step in getting her some sort of help. And unfortunately, it did not come till much later on, just because we were not educated around mental illness. It was just something that, or my family member's kooky, right? Or my family member, that's just them, right? You don't really think of it that deeply.
And that's what I wanted to ask you, as far as just the, when you see the signs, my story with my best friend, that she was diagnosed and her family didn't want to talk about it. Her family didn't want to share anything until her passing, when she died due to suicide, that people were like, oh, she looked, just like what you were saying, oh, she looks so pretty, but she looks so put together, like what happened. Right. So if you can share as far as that stigma and being afraid of just having that conversation, and you guys weren't educated at that moment, if you can share with the viewers, at what point did you become or felt that you were educated enough to be able to have that conversation, and who did you start having those conversations with as far as your experience?
Well, first of all, when we want to talk about the stigmas on mental health, right? It's a very ugly label that's put on somebody, right? It's a lot of people with mental illnesses or disorders don't want to speak up themselves because They don't want to be embarrassed. They don't want to be labeled. They don't want to be looked at as abnormal or as someone that's not able to function normally in society. And so they don't get treatment. They don't get help. And unfortunately, it becomes a vicious cycle, because what happens as a result of them not getting help, the repercussions of not getting help will often be taken out on the individuals that they live with, the significant other, the caregiver, whomever. And then so when that caregiver or people in their lives recognize something is wrong because of the stigmas, they don't want to say anything, right? Because I don't want to embarrass my family. I don't want to talk about my mother. I don't want, there's so many different things. And then we sit back, we get all of the abuse, and we end up in therapy and or now traumatized, dealing with a mental disorder or illness as a result of the person that was mentally ill. So it's a vicious cycle, first of all, that I think when you recognize there is, patterns of behaviors and characteristics that are not normal. And I think we all have something intuitive in us that will tell us something is off, something is not right.
Right.
And so that is the moment when you need to speak up and say something, right? For me, I think until I got out of a narcissistic abusive relationship, which was almost 3 years ago now. I was in that relationship for 17 years. Almost 3 years now. The more I studied and did research on narcissistic disorder, the more I talked with my therapist, and she was able to bring so much clarity, right? Because it's not just about, knowing what's wrong with that person, but it's also knowing that you have nothing to do with their disorder, and you were not a part of that, and you didn't deserve the repercussions that came from that. So once I was able to really be educated and understand how mental illness works, because I think that's another thing, right? We think mental illness, we think crazy. Oh, they're just crazy, right?
Right.
That is the unfortunate label that is on mental illness. And we think someone with mental illness is not able to be helped, when there are, in fact, coping methods, behavioral therapy, and all sorts of solutions that can actually help a lot of people with mental illness. So for me, it was, I think I recognized it almost 3 years ago, and I didn't talk about it immediately because I was in a process of healing. I knew that that was very important. I'm a strong advocate for getting therapy and getting yourself healed, and you do the work on you first, because you really can't advocate something that you have not only lived through, but also have not necessarily experienced the help out there that is available, and experience how it can help you. So I mean, that's my perspective on that.
So let me ask you this, because I actually I knew Misty just through friends, just through Instagram, but then I joined her Bible study group that she has from her church in Hope City. She created this amazing Monday night that actually starts next week. We'll share that information next week. Faith and Fashion. So I joined the group, and I listened to Misty and all her amazing just kind of stories with beautiful women within that group in a private setting. So I know faith is very important to you. Tell the audience how was that important to you to help you kind of overcome and realize all the struggles that you went through with your mom and just your other family members, but also how faith was seen negative because that wasn't something that you can talk about in church or in a setting as far as, a mental health condition with a family member.
Great question. For me, oh my God, faith, I'm going to try not to get emotional because it has been the grace of God. Let me just say that I'm even here today.
Mhm.
Because I had a relationship with God myself at a young age, I always kept that faith, right? And I think when you have a real relationship with Jesus Christ, and you walk with him, you pray, you talk with him, it is very real. I understand for some people they may not have had an encounter with a higher power, and that is just, it's the universe, right? But I know for a fact that at a very young age I had my own personal encounter with God that solidified my faith so strongly, or my belief. Let me just say that my faith along the way was shaken. Let me be transparent.
Right.
But my belief in God never went away, right? And I always knew through everything that I went through, that he was there. He had his hand protecting me from so many things. When I look back on a lot of the things that happened to us as kids, um, it was nobody but God to bring me out of that situation. And to be honest with you, it was God and my relationship with God that showed me the narcissistic abuse in that relationship that I was in, because I would pray all the time and I'd be like, God, what is going on? What is wrong with this person? Like, I need to know. And God was so good to give me signs and to show me and to allow things to surface, things that were behind closed doors and in the dark. He allowed to be exposed so I could see it and go, I see, right? And only God could have provided me that type of insight, to be quite honest with you, because I think at that time, I know for a fact I had nobody
Right.
that I thought was going through what I was going through. I know now there are other women, tons of other women who have gone through what I've gone through. And that group, Faith and Fashion, that's the name of the group, Faith and Fashion. Um, that group for me, I've had so many women come out of the blue and DM me or message me or call me or share with me their own personal experiences with some of the same things that I was going through. And I was able to share my story, and I was able to tell them how God was the person that has kept me, and have been able to encourage them to keep their faith. Because I will tell you, when you talk with women who are dealing with domestic violence or narcissistic abuse, it's a very, it's almost a gray area in which you can't say too much. You can't be in a place to tell women, oh, just pack yourself up and leave, because you don't
Right.
know the mindset of the individual they're with. So sometimes the only thing I have to give women is God. The only thing I have to share to help them is my faith, because I do recognize I'm not a therapist, a counselor, and I do not be quick to throw out my opinions or my own diagnoses based on
Right.
what I think. I don't do that. So my faith in God and my testimony is what has given other women hope to say, okay, I'm going to pray and trust God to guide me out of this situation himself and give me the wisdom on how to navigate through this. Right.
Right.
So, yeah.
And I think you brought a good point because I joined that group and just kind of as an outside, just there were members there that have been part of your group for a long, long time.
Mm-hmm.
And it becomes a very open space that people just share anything, and all the beautiful women just respect the stories, listen to the stories, and really just learn. What would you recommend, for those individuals that are within, let's say, their own either church groups or um, their own their own memberships, I guess, within their own faith-based organizations, how to even start having a conversation, whether it's about mental health as far as just getting assistance or seeking help. Like, how would you recommend someone afraid of being in a setting that is not going to be accepted when it comes to that faith-based organization setting?
Oh, so one of the things that I've done, what I feel like sometimes the easiest way is to share your own story, right? And if you're asking about, because I want to make sure I understand your question, you're asking about a person who may have a mental illness or something they're dealing with. How do they share with someone in the church?
Correct. Let's say if they don't have anyone and they feel like that's their, you know, that's their area that they just kind of lean on, you know, outside of just believing in God or having faith in God. What would be that starting conversation if that's the person that's, you know, being diagnosed or is having struggles to feel comfortable to share that story?
You know, I would say do your best, and I know it can be challenging, to find, you know, either someone else in the church that has gone through the same thing via another group, or it could even be something close to it. Because, so for example, my group, right? So this season, we're going to be talking about harnessing our emotions, right? Just how to, and that was inspired from 2020 and the chaos that has brought us, right? It's not a talk about mental illness, but we're talking about emotions, right? That is a general, broad topic where I have no doubt in my mind, you know, mental health is gonna come in some of the conversations, right? So maybe if you are someone who is, you know, dealing with something and you want to go about trying to express, tell, share, maybe you start by telling your story, maybe in not a direct way, but in a general way. Start by, you know, maybe starting your own group, or saying, hey, let's do a talk on feelings, emotions, something that can be a gateway and segue to conversations around mental illness. Because I guarantee you this, when you share your story, or even if you are talking about something that segues into what you're really talking about, somebody's already gone through it. Somebody is listening saying, oh my God, we're talking about sadness, but can we talk about how this leads, how I had so much sadness, I got depressed, how it led me into a dark place. Like, you know, just find something that is not necessarily that topic in specific, but find something a little bit broader in general to bring people in, because that's what you want to do. You want to draw people in. And as people come in and you have this group around you, you will find that intimate space and the safe space where you can start to be vocal and you can be vulnerable and you can share your testimony or what you're going through, because I guarantee you somebody else is going through the same thing.
And that's a really good point that you bring up. Someone was mentioning, how do they become part of the group? So if you want to tell them, we have 2 comments here. How do I become part of this group, and how did this group get started?
So I'll tell you how the group got started. So I attend Hope City here in Houston. Shout out to Pastor Jeremy and Jenny Foster, if they watch this. But we have what we call connect groups. And we don't like to say they're Bible studies, they're connect groups. They're where, you know, groups come together under common topics or themes. And in the case of my group, it's fashion. And you have the option of including faith as a part of it, or you have the option to just hang out. There's some groups that are just knitting groups in the church, and they're all people in the same walk of faith that come together. They've got fitness groups, they've got bike riding groups where they just go ride together, right? So my group, Faith and Fashion, we do cover fashion, but we also do cover faith. So it's about, it's from 7:30 to 9. So we spend half the time covering a specific topic for that night. And it's different every week. As I mentioned, we're talking about harnessing emotions. So we're going to be talking about one emotion per week, and we're going to look at the Bible and what the Bible says about this emotions and how we can manage these emotions. And then the other half of that, we talk about a fashion topic. We talk about, you know, a great Walmart haul, some of the best pieces to find at Walmart, because they are actually stepping up their fashion game. We talk about, you know, undergarments and the best things, garments, you know, undergarments to wear. You're just like, there's something different every week. Now, as far as being a part of the group, registration has just recently closed. It's pretty packed. I have about 56 women that have registered for the group. I like to say I've gone international. I have a lady sitting out of Canada. One of her friends here in Houston told her, you got to be in the group. And so she's going to be chiming in via Canada. I got another lady sitting out of New York, another one in Oklahoma that will be joining us virtually. But it's a 12-week Connect group. And then we close the season. We take about a 2-week break and we start another season. So you can always go to hopecity.com/connect groups, and you can find under the women's group Faith and Fashion. You can find the dates of when we'll do that again. And I've been hosting this group for right at a year now. I'd say it's been a year. So, and it's been great. It's been wonderful.
We have a comment here of someone wants to know, how did you bring up the topic on mental health with your kids in your experience? How much do you share with your kids, and how much should you not share with your kids?
That's a good question. Because, I think because of the stigmas on mental illness, I will say that the church in general has been very quiet on these types of subjects, and we've covered up a lot of it, right? Even outside of the church, right? People don't want to say anything because it's like, don't say anything. That's your dad. Don't say anything. That's mom. Don't tell anybody that. And really, it's not about telling your business per se. It's about speaking the truth. Right. And I will say that I battled with certain things with my kids because, people say, well, don't tell your kids this or that about this person or that person because they're going to hate you for it, and so on and so forth. Here's something that I learned from experience. Watching my parents brutally be, abusive to each other, physically, verbally. We wanted them to divorce. Like as kids, we were like, right. Why don't y'all just get away from each other? Right. We grew up and were more upset about the lies. And it's different when you're lying to your children about someone else's, in which children get angry at you. Mom, you kept me from seeing my dad because you lied and said this about him and he's not this person. Or, Dad, you lied to me about my mother. I found out the truth. When children uncover the truth and they learn that you've lied to them is when they tend to get more hostile. So I like to speak truth out of grace, out of love. I tell my kids, when my kids ask about their grandmother, why do we not see, Grandy anymore? Why we never see her? And I just sit down and explain to him, listen, baby, she has this illness, right? I address it with a lot of grace and a lot of love around it. And I don't necessarily go into the details of everything she did wrong. I just say, here is the illness. Here are some of the results of this illness. And, this person might say this thing to you. They might say that, and it's going to be really ugly or really mean. So, that's the reason that that person is the way they are, right? Because they have an illness. I get it as a parent. There is a fine line, that you struggle with in how much do I tell them and how much I don't. I think if children find out and they have questions, and my kids ask me questions, I tell them the truth. If they know a truth and they come ask me about it, I tell them the truth about it. Now, I will say my kids are older. My daughter will be 18. My son is 14, and they've already, they experience things for themselves, and kids are a lot more resilient and understanding than I think we give them credit for sometimes. I've just learned that you got to give truth with grace and love. And use your parental discretion. I think if your parental intuition is saying they don't really need to know this information, don't tell them. If it's not detrimental to them, don't tell them. If it's not impacting them, if, the other person that, you might be concerned about telling them things about is not harming them, not belittling them, not talking to them crazy, then there's really nothing, honestly, they will find out the truth eventually. I often, if my children come to me with a concern because, someone specific said something to them that was demeaning, then I will say, listen, you are not what they said you were. The reason they said that is because they have an internal issue. They have a self-confidence problem. They have a self-esteem issue, right? I think it's no different than how you would parent them if someone at school was bullying them or whatever. I think use your discernment and your intuition. Tell them what they absolutely need to know if it is very detrimental to them or life-saving. Otherwise, if it doesn't impact them, they will learn when they get older. They'll find out. Indeed, they will.
So we have another comment here or question. Let me go back to it really quick. How did you overcome, coming from a abusive relationship yourself and being married? At what point did you felt it was enough and you needed to get out of that?
Well, 17 years, trust me, I knew. I had people ask me that question, but that was a long time. Yeah, it was long enough to know it was time for me to go, right? So for me, when I found myself feeling less than, feeling devalued, there was a point in my life where I was this wholesome, happy, young, driven, independent young woman. And somebody came in and destroyed that. Right. And I said to myself, I am more than what I'm being treated, more than the way I'm being treated. And it's when you recognize your self-value is when you say, that's it, I'm out, enough, right? Especially if you have taken on the abuse for years. It's different if it's, every couple of years, all relationships go up and down, right? You have good times and happy times. But when I found myself feeling less than, feeling not worthy, feeling not pretty, not smart, not capable, then I was like, I'm done with this. Mm-hmm. I'm done. And I tell women all the time, every woman knows what their breaking point is. Everybody, men and women, know what their breaking point is in a relationship. And I say, follow your intuition on that before the break happens, right? Before you are completely broken. Because I left that relationship very damaged. And it took me a lot of hard work and therapy to get where I am today. But just know that you are worth more than the way you're being treated, and sometimes it takes someone else to tell you that. You are valuable, you are worthy of love, you're worthy to be treated the way you deserve to be treated and the way you want to be treated, right. But you have to make that decision and find that strength to make that move.
We have another comment here as far as, Misty, you're mentioning therapy a lot. What was something that made you seek a therapist? Because a lot of people are afraid to seek a therapist. What would be some of the positive things that you learn having a therapist? Because therapy is not for everyone.
Right, I understand that. I will say this, I highly encourage speaking to a therapist, and I'm going to tell you why. Because if not a therapist, who are you talking to? Who are you talking to have an outlet? And, as much as we love our friends and family, a lot of times their feedback and opinions will be biased because they want the best for us. So sometimes they will even advise things that they think is best for us without taking in or factoring in the other things, the other dynamics as a part of, let's say, a relationship, for example. I could have listened to a ton of people advise me on what I need to do with my relationship, but they weren't factoring in, well, we have assets together, we have kids. What about work? How am I going to take care of myself if I'm, independent? Like, there are a lot of other factors that your biased friends and family that do actually love you and care about you, but they are not thinking about all of that. And what a therapist does is they come in from a non-biased perspective. they sit and they listen to you. And they're going to ask you questions and make you think about things that are going to help you navigate yourself and guide you to what are the best decisions for you. And I truly feel that therapy is a safe place. Therapists and psychiatrists are bound legally to be confidential to information, with the exception of certain types of abuse. And they usually will go over that as a part of the confidentiality, but they have to be confidential. So you can go in and get it out. If you're not talking to a therapist, really think about who you are talking to and how much that person is really in a position to give you or help you help guide you to make the right decisions for yourself.
That's really good. And I want to bring up a good point someone just mentioned as far as what NAMI's offering. So we are starting our spring classes. We are offering family to family that starts in a couple of weeks. Anyone can register on our website, or they can register by calling 713-970-4483. And what our courses provide, it's really, a very structured group. It's going to give you diversity in the experience, just the participants that are there. But it really helps you, for family members that have a loved one that's diagnosed, just really a lot of communication skills, coping skills. So if anyone that's asking right now, we are providing our spring classes that are going to be kick off. These are going to be in a very private setting. They're 8-week courses through Zoom. And we also have another class that's called Family and Friends. So you can support any family member or any friend that's dealing with their own mental health struggle. If any of you have any questions, we'll put the information on the chat, but the classes will be starting soon. We have another comment here. Misty, how do you take care of self-care? What does self-care mean to you, and how are you doing self-care right now?
That's such a great question. Self-care to me is becoming the best version of yourself, right? And it doesn't mean to be perfect. It's not meant to say being as perfect as you can, because perfectionism is another mental little warp that my therapist actually talked to me about. It's not a good thing. Let me put it that way. Becoming your better self means that you are reading books to help you learn more, to help you understand things more. Self-care to me is taking care of yourself physically, so you're in the best health that you can be, so you can do things that you enjoy, like, a bike ride or hike. Self-care to me is being in good nutritional health, giving your body the right care and nutrition that you need. To me, that's a form of self-care. Getting back to things that you love. For me, it's interior design and painting. I forgot how much I loved interior design. I lost that for a long time. And I have recently started to rediscover that love. And so I'm doing things around my house and being creative. And these are things that were just lost as a part of me, as a part of what I went through and being broken. And I feel when you start to find that you are going back to those things that brought you joy, that is a part of self-care for you. It's self-healing, it's self-care, it's self-therapy. And to me, that is what self-care is about. It's not necessarily about pampering. Of course, we love that too. And if that is your thing, go for it. I can always appreciate a good, massage, but self-care is giving yourself the love and the attention that you need to maintain a healthy mental state, so you can continue to be there for yourself and the other people that need you.
We have a comment here. Where did you become a fashionista, and what jacket do you have on? What brand of jacket do you have on?
Well, this is an old jacket from
beautiful H&M. Color, by the way.
So I actually have always been a fashionista. So most people don't know, but I'm an artist. I'm a painter. I've not painted in years, but I've always been and operated on the artistic side of my brain, if that makes sense. I'm not necessarily your business numbers and, sort of side. I've always kind of operated on the artistic and creative side of my brain. So fashion for me was just another outlet in which I can express myself creatively. And I've always been a fashionista since I was a little girl. I'm very much a girly girl, and I always like to look nice and put together. And actually, that was something that I got from my mother. My mother always dressed nice, and that was something she strongly instilled in myself. And to be honest with you, it has been a sort of a saving grace for me in times when I felt down and felt low or felt insecure about myself. Dressing up just made me feel better, right? And it was always nice to get a compliment and someone say, "Wow, you look really nice today." It would kind of, would take my brain away from the negativity at the time. So, yeah. So I've always been this way, girlfriend. Always been fashionista. Girlfriend or guy friend, whoever asked.
Yeah. For those joining, we're talking to Misty Campbell. She's sharing her story on her mental health advocacy now, with her just passion and sharing her story with others on her struggles with her own family members suffering from a mental illness and her own struggles. So someone wants to know here, we'll share that at the end. What's your Instagram? How do people get in contact with you to kind of follow you and kind of on your journey? But I have a question for you as far as, me and you are, for me, it was my friend that was dealing with her own mental struggles. For you, it was a family member. What would you tell the community to help? How can the community help with either bringing awareness or helping break the stigma? You looking in, being part of that, for your entire life, as far as just what you saw with your mother, what would you recommend or what would you share for the community to really, especially now that we're all going through just hard times, starting from last year, and people are dealing with a lot of mental health struggles. And I think people get confused with the clinical part of it. You can just be depressed and have anxiety and not really be diagnosed, but it's just, moments that you go through.
Yes, that's a really good question. So based on my experience, so I have 4 different pointers, right? But I want to say, as far as getting involved and getting the community involved, I really think it starts at home first. I think you have got to start at home and do number 1, start asking questions. Ask questions about yourself. And in 2020, let me just tell you, has been no better time for us that has forced us to sit, reflect, and be left with our own thoughts, right? And I think you need to start asking yourself, how do I feel? What are my thoughts about myself? How do my kids feel? Start asking those questions at home when you recognize things that are not, that are out of the norm, right? Start asking questions. Number 2, speak up. Either say, "Hey, I need help. I'm extremely sad. I don't know if I'm depressed or not, but I feel extremely, just more sad than normal. I need to speak to somebody." Speak up. Speak up to somebody, a friend that you might see or think is suffering from something. I have a girlfriend that during Corona was always posting on Instagram, "I'm having such a horrible day today, but I'm going to get through it." And, and I saw that repetitively, and I reached out to her. I spoke up. I said, do you need to talk to somebody? Do you need, maybe have you thought about talking to a therapist? Speak up, right? Number 3, educate. Educate yourself. And I think a huge part of educating yourself is getting with a therapist or a counselor, somebody that is in that field, who have been educated on human behavior and human psychology. Get educated and find out if you are dealing with something. It may be that you're not, but you won't know unless you get educated, right? And then number 4, I think when you've done all of those, advocate by finding out what's going on locally, in your church, in the neighborhood, your schools, or different women or men organizations. Hey, ask them, are we talking about mental health? Or, hey, this month we're looking for something to highlight. Why not mental health? Let's bring somebody in to talk. That's a great way to advocate, just to start locally, right where you are. And And also look into your national organizations, like NAMI, and look to, they have opportunities to volunteer. I've signed up. I've ticked several boxes of stuff that I can do. So that's just my way of advocating. So there are lots of opportunities, but definitely start at home first. Start by advocating, speaking up, educating, and fighting for the people in your home and people close to you. And once you go through that process, you'll be able to really advocate for others out there.
And that's one thing I want to mention to our viewers. That's where we come in. We're that's where NAMI Greater Houston comes in with, the questions that you were saying. Well, what do I say? How do I start? How do I even, start that dialogue and conversation? We offer these classes complimentary at no cost to anyone. Right now, we're even reaching out more people because they're virtually virtually on Zoom. So we're offering our Family to Family, which is an 8-week program, and it really helps support family members with mental health concerns, while we also show you in maintaining your own well-being. You brought that up, and I'm glad you brought that up because, kind of keeping your self-care and your mental health, you personally, before really trying to help a family member, you gotta put yourself first. So we'll also show you, anything as far as like if there's someone that is a loved one that is struggling with those conditions, we're going to show you all the different things and all the communications that you can get at. So people are asking where you can register. We have a post on our NAMI Greater Houston social media and our Facebook page where you can call, or you can also register. It's very easy. Register at namigreaterhouston.org. But this is why we have these classes to educate you and to help you, to make you understand that you're definitely not alone, going through that, especially if it's a family member or a friend. So we'll put the information on the chat again. And then as far as what's next for you, what I know you started your Mental Health Monday. So let's tell everyone where they can find you, your Instagram handle. Someone's asking, does she provide services for styling? Yes, you do. So you want to talk about that?
I do. Thank you for asking about that. I guess we haven't talked about that. Yeah, so I'm a wardrobe and fashion stylist. So I basically help women find the style that speaks to them, to their personality, right? And I also help them think outside of the box in terms of style. And it's an absolute pleasure. And it's a joy. I get to meet such amazing women, and I help get to, I guess, sort of kind of bring them back to life, right? There's just something about, getting a makeover and this feeling of starting fresh and starting new that is just so freeing. And it just puts a whole new vibe in your walk through life, right? But you can find me on Instagram at 3012 Fashion Ave. That's short for Avenue. So it's 3012 Fashion AVE. It's all one word. Well, you can separate it too. Either way, you'll find me. But yeah, so you can find me there on Instagram. I have a store that is about to be launched at the end of this week. Don't fuss at me, Carmen. Carmen wanted me to have it up and ready by now.
I did.
It's work, girl, it's work. But yeah, it's going to be a resale, vintage avant-garde store where I will be having curated pieces, unique pieces that I have picked out. And some of my stuff too, the inspiration came from, we're in quarantine. Where am I going really? What am I going to do with all this? Y'all see these shoes all back here? It's insanity.
Someone actually just made a comment about the shoes.
The whole wall. I have tons of shoes, so I can't do anything with this stuff anymore. So some of my unique pieces will be there, and I also have some curated pieces, but that will be announced on Instagram. So make sure you follow me on Instagram, and you will see when I launch the store and the name of it. And all that good stuff. So as far as what's next for me, the most immediate thing is I start my Faith and Fashion group on Monday, this upcoming Monday. We're super excited about it. If I have room at some point to open it up for other individuals, I'll announce it on Instagram. We do have, like I said, 56 women. And although it's virtual and we can really have a ton of women, I think, the idea of a group is like, to feel somewhat intimate, right? So right. I definitely don't want to intimidate people coming in with too many people. I want to definitely be able to give full attention to each woman that that I minister to. So that's upcoming and immediate. And then the store, of course, by the end of this week will be up. And my daughter's a senior. She's graduating. So I don't got time for nothing else but to focus on her, get graduation photos done. And, you know, her mom being a stylist, I have this whole vision, right? So that's going to be upcoming. And yeah, and just follow me on Instagram and you'll find out more of what I have going on later down the road.
It's very exciting. And before we wrap up, I want to just say, I know we talked about this amazing group that, you know, you've been part of now. You are the lead of the group for about a year. But what has the group meant to you as far as once you listening to, you know, the women sharing their stories? Excuse me. How has this group helped you kind of develop your own self as an individual, and listening to, you know, these people? Myself, I share stories there. Everybody shares their story. But looking back as when you started, or now you're getting double the traction with, I need to make sure I log in on time next Monday. What has that group changed in your life?
Wow. I know it was God sent for sure. It was God inspired. When I started it, to be honest with you, I wasn't ready to start it, meaning that psychologically, I still wasn't ready. I didn't feel like my house was ready yet, because at that time we were doing in-home meetings before Corona. And, you know, I did it anyways, and it has been life-changing. I've had so many women to share stories that have inspired me. They have had biblical insight in which they have shared scripture and shared meaning behind it that I never looked at it from that perspective. And it was very life-changing. And I tell you what, these women make me bold. They give me courage. I'm going to share this really quick. I had a mom reach out to me who joined the group, were registered. She reached out to me and said, hey, I have a daughter who wants to share her story. She's just, she's an overcomer from domestic violence. And I was like, wow, I would love to have her share her testimony, because I'm thinking this is, you know, it's perfect timing. We're talking about emotions, so we can only imagine what she went through. And I met her and her mom. We met up at a Panera Bread because I said, I want to meet you so we can talk about the group and what you're willing to share. And I found myself in a Panera Bread with this beautiful mom and her, I think she's 22 or 24, 24-year-old daughter. And we just sat and shared stories, and the triumph that this young lady has had and the courage, just, it gave me boldness. And I actually reached out to her before this talk, and I asked her, I said, would it be okay if I reference her? I might reference her story. I don't know, but I just want to make sure it's okay. She was like, you know what? We are all about empowering other people and sharing their testimony. So you're more than welcome to bring that up. And, you know, just encounters like that. I would have never met these women if it wasn't for this group. And while I shared my story with this young woman, and she felt so validated in knowing that she wasn't the only person that had gone through, you know, abuse, she gave me so much courage, right? And just made me say, you know what, if this 20-something-year-old beautiful young lady is willing to share, there's no reason that I should hold back, none whatsoever, in sharing and educating based on my story. So it really has empowered me in so many ways. So I love it. I absolutely love it.
So before we wrap up, I have a last question for you. How do you stay motivated? And since we're talking about emotions, you know, with everything that you are now, with being vocal and sharing your story, what emotion do you have now moving forward with, you know, kind of portraying the message of positive conversations when it comes to mental health?
The emotion that I have, it's I'm excited. It can be somewhat scary, right? Because, you know, our victimizers are always still out there, right? And you always have this thing in the back of your mind. What is somebody going to say? What are they going to say? You know, it's getting over that fear that creates more courage. And I'm excited to see the lives that are going to change, the people that are going to be rescued, people whose trajectory in life is going to change for the better when they learn and they see somebody like myself, because I no longer want to be the woman that everybody sees. Oh, she's a fashionista. She's so amazing. She's got her life all together. She's such a pillar of strength. This was one of the reasons I wanted to be vocal, because I want people to see a face of triumph and overcomer. I want to be the face of healing and what it looks like to be whole and to be healed, right? And so I'm excited about the journey. I know that it's not going to be the most popular space to be in, and I'm aware of that, but I'm ready to break generational cycles, right? So I'm definitely, emotions, yeah, emotions are high, emotions are excited. I'm passionate. I'm ready to go, ready to go.
So next time I see you, you're gonna have your store open. You're gonna be ready to go. It's gonna come. So I definitely want to thank you for your time.
Yes.
I want to thank you for signing up to become a volunteer. We're actually recruiting right now. If you're interested or know anyone that's interested in volunteering for NAMI Greater Houston, we're preparing for our annual NAMI walks, which is going to be May 22nd of this year, and that's our biggest our biggest event where we bring the community together to be able to provide you all the resources, all our educational programs, all our community outreach events that we have to continue that support for those in need. So we'll be putting more information on that. But Misty, thank you so much once again. Misty's Instagram handle, her Instagram handle is 3012 fashion, FASHION, AVE. You can follow her. She's going to be putting more Mental Mondays, tips there, and kind of just follow her in her journey. And I thank you. This is exciting.
Thank you.
Exciting to have you as we kick off this month and we continue with amazing individuals like yourself that continue just advocating on much needed conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, and for everybody on. Thank you guys for joining. I'm sending prayers your way and much love.
Thank you, Misty. Bye, everyone.